So there's this thing called breadcrumb cheating. And this is basically a trail of breadcrumbs that leads up to actually cheating on your partner. And that starts with something as small as liking someone's picture, following someone on Instagram who you have, sexual or intimate thoughts about, right? Because we obviously all think other human beings are attractive. Putting yourself in a situation where breadcrumb by breadcrumb, you get to a point where cheating becomes a possibility. You're in each other's DMs. Maybe you're not being inappropriate, but someone's in your DMs. They're texting you. All of a sudden you find yourself deleting messages, not because you want to cheat or because you have any intention of cheating, because you're realizing all of a sudden something that you said or something they said is inappropriate. You've crossed a line. You have these thoughts. We're human beings. We all have thoughts. You can't act on every thought and every whim that you have. That's called an intrusive thought. Like, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And so the breadcrumb cheating is how really serious, like, long-term relationships can be ended, because you look in your boyfriend's phone, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
You've been DMing this girl for 6 months. I know there's nothing inappropriate. Why are you talking to her? And that turns into long-term someone having like a whole ass other relationship behind your back. They don't know how it happened. Breadcrumb.
So what she's referring to is also called micro-cheating. And believe it or not, there are predictable reasons why micro-cheating happens, and also predictable signs that will tell you if somebody is about to escalate micro-cheating into actual cheating. And I'm going to break this down in this video here. We're going to talk about what micro-cheating is, why it happens, what you can do about it, and also how to really recognize the big red flags if this is about to escalate, and how to even check in and ask yourself, is this the right relationship for me to be in if I'm seeing these types of patterns in my relationship in front of me? So first and foremost, micro-cheating basically refers to small or minor actions or behaviors that, although they may not explicitly be infidelity or cheating, would essentially be considered inappropriate or disrespectful in a committed relationship. And these actions will essentially create emotional distance or cause trust issues between partners, and can include things like the obvious, things like flirting, things like emotional intimacy that may be inappropriate, social media behaviors that may be, again, flirtatious, but in the online space, even a person downplaying their own relationship status to somebody else, saying something like, oh yeah, I'm not really seeing anybody, or yeah, I'm seeing somebody, but it's not that serious, when in fact you may be in a committed relationship, and can also include secretive communication, which is, when it's starting to escalate, which we'll talk more about. But what I want you to know, as somebody who spent 10 plus years working with people in both private practice and through our online programs, is that you're going to look at, if you look at 100% of people who cheat, 10% of people, maybe slightly less than 10%, fall into the category of sex addiction. Usually this can be individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, other personality disorders perhaps, or mental emotional challenges that they really need to work through that can lead into sex addiction. But other than that 10%, 90+% of people fall into the category that cheat because of a few major reasons. Number one, they don't know what they actually want prior to getting into a relationship, which leads them to number two, having unmet needs in a relationship. Now, your subconscious mind is a needs meeting machine. And what I want you to know is that your conscious mind is responsible for roughly 3 to 5% of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions or decisions, like to cheat. Whereas your subconscious mind is responsible for 95 to 97%. And so what's going to often take place for people is they don't know what they want, which leads them to be in a relationship where they didn't vet properly. So now they have unmet needs in this relationship. And because the subconscious mind is the one running the show, and even though the conscious mind may say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, this is an inappropriate behavior, the subconscious mind may barrel ahead on things for people, because the subconscious mind is designed to get your needs met, and it sees it as like a survival issue. Like if your needs are not met, it feels like, oh my gosh, will I survive? And so let me give you an example to really break this down. And there's still a third step in here. But basically, you may take somebody who doesn't know, for example, that acceptance, appreciation, harmony, consistency, emotional safety, and validation, feeling wanted or important, are important needs to them in a relationship. So they go into a relationship, they're attracted to somebody, they have a fun time with the person, they start dating them, and everything's great in the honeymoon stage, everything's fine. And then after we exit the honeymoon stage and move into the power struggle stage, which is in the life cycle of every relationship, all of a sudden this person starts going, oh my goodness, I'm not really getting my needs met. Now, this won't be a conscious mind process. This won't be something where somebody sits down and necessarily like introspects and evaluates, oh, I have these 7 needs unmet. Instead, they're probably just feeling like something is missing in the relationship, which is when we have unmet needs. So remember, I said people don't know what they want, so they don't vet appropriately. Then they have unmet needs in a relationship. And then step 3, and this is where the cheating ends up happening, or at least the micro cheating can begin, is over time, because they feel like something is missing, they begin to resent and or justify their actions. They start thinking, well, my partner doesn't care about me anyways, or my needs would be met. Or they go, I don't know if this is going to work out anyways. So because I'm not sure, it's fine to just follow this person on social media and just send them a little message here and there. It's fine to have some secretive communication or flirtation behind the scenes. And they start justifying. But guess what? In the actions that they take when it comes to micro cheating, their subconscious mind is barreling ahead to take those actions because those actions are actually bids to get those unmet needs met. So, oftentimes, what you'll see is when people are doing things in the micro cheating landscape, what's actually being represented is unmet needs that they don't know they have, and thus they are not communicating them to their partner in a relationship. Thus, they are not being met. And then when the subconscious mind starts starving for its needs, it starts trying to meet these needs in other forms. Now, whose issue is this in a relationship? Is it the person who's being micro cheated on? No, it's honestly the responsibility of the person whose needs are unmet, because nobody's going to mind read somebody else's needs. And this is a call towards introspection in relationships. We should be in a position, ideally, where we're able to introspect, look at what it is that we're needing in relationships, practice being vulnerable enough to communicate that and convey that to a partner in a way that is clear, specific, and achievable, actionable for somebody else in partnership. And also in a way that allows for reciprocity, allows for a person to say, hey, these are my unmet needs. What are yours? How can I meet yours too? And this is actually a huge part of making it out of the power struggle stage into the future stages of relationship, like stability stage, commitment stage, bliss stage, which come after that power struggle stage, and which we actually won't do unless we learn to understand what our needs are and communicate our needs. So I'm going to tell you one last really important and hopefully life changing thing here. But before I do, I want you to know, if you want to do a course that's fully for free that you can check out just for a limited time about needs in a relationship and understanding what yours are and what your partners are, so you don't have to see this micro cheating happen in relationships. And hopefully, you're also vetting people from the get go that are emotionally available and that are willing to have these conversations and open up about these things, so that you don't have to fall into waiting for the micro cheating to happen to then be a signpost that something's not going right. But instead, you can be proactive about these things. But if you want to do a deep dive into this, I'll put a link down below to a course all about needs and how to recognize your needs and the needs of other people's in relationships. And you can learn fully for free just for a limited time. Now, as I mentioned, we'll talk about micro cheating. So you'll see these unmet needs happen. Let's say, for example, somebody really wants to feel wanted, appreciated, or have like a lot of affirmation or validation in a relationship, but they don't know how to convey that. What they'll do when they start micro cheating will be a strategy to get those very specific needs met. It will all be linked back to needs. And what you'll see is then they'll try to maybe engage with people, and maybe they engage with the people who then in turn make them feel wanted or important or prioritized, and don't really foster micro cheating communication with somebody who doesn't. By the way, I'm not excusing this behavior. I'm just letting you know the mechanics of how it's worked, because I've seen this thousands of times over the past, now, I don't know, going on 14 years or so. So, what do you do? Well, if there are escalations of somebody withdrawing, not showing up, and not being consistent, more arguments, more fighting, all these things that you'll see in the power struggle stage, it does not mean that somebody's going to micro cheat, but it does mean that there are probably unmet needs in a relationship, which of course we know can land us down the trajectory of that being a probability. And so, what we want to be able to do, if we're seeing these other symptoms that are associated with escalation of challenges, which in turn may escalate the probability of micro cheating, you want to have a conversation about needs. You want to sit down. You want to talk about these are my needs in a relationship. What are yours? Interestingly enough, by the way, needs are often broken down by attachment style. There's a lot more to this story than this, but a lot of anxious attachment needs are around validation, reassurance, encouragement, to feel wanted, prioritized, to gain certainty and have planning and context for things. Whereas avoidance, dismissive avoidance, are more around freedom, independence, autonomy, appreciation, harmony, feeling accepted, feeling understood and empathized with in relationships. So you can see, just before we even get into fearful, avoidant, or secure, you can see how different attachment styles generally have very different needs. But you want to talk about needs, understand your needs, understand your partner's needs, and have strategies where you pour into meeting needs for one another, because needs are way more impactful, by the way, than love languages in a relationship. Love languages are a beautiful overarching umbrella, but let's look at this for just a moment. I have a big quality time love language. It's my highest out of the 5 love languages. If you're not familiar with Dr. Gary Chapman's work around love languages, the love languages are quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gifts. And they're all pretty self-explanatory, except for maybe acts of service, which are like bringing somebody a coffee, taking them to the airport, like these acts of service, right? And if I sit down, but I have a need for emotional connection, if I sit down and spend quality time with somebody as my love language, watching Netflix or television, that's not going to necessarily meet my need for emotional connection. So, although I'm spending quality time, I may not be really fulfilled by that interaction. If instead I have a deep conversation about philosophy or psychology or behavior or things that are vulnerable, like that's going to make me feel emotionally connected. And now my quality time, is actually being used for emotional connection, which is going to make it way more fulfilling. So needs are like the most important way that we give and receive love in relationships. And it's really important to know yours. So, with that being said, those can be things that stop or disrupt micro cheating patterns of behavior. And if you see somebody doing things in a relationship where they are micro cheating, or that even escalates all the way till cheating, you want to decide if that's a non negotiable for you. I would say that unless somebody is really willing to do the work to transform things, it should be a non negotiable for the vast majority of people, unless you are seeing exceptional effort from that person to make up for that huge, stab to the relationship, that huge dynamic that's going to have a massive impact. And if you are not seeing massive action in terms of somebody working to repair, to create change, to gain insight into themselves and the root cause of why they did it, it should be a non-negotiable for future relationship dynamics. So anyways, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for stopping by, for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying this channel as a whole. I put daily videos out here, so hit the notification bell in order to not miss any. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.